Here's our next reader, Doug Kiburz.
Thank you, James, and I apologize. The 3 pieces I had, I threw out because there was a cosmic disturbance, and for some reason, I've been channeling 2 of my favorite storytellers, the late Paul Harvey and Garrison Keillor. And so it is page 1 in the news from the Maple Leaf Meadows. Now, Maple Leaf Meadows is a little manure ranch. I say that because there's cows and there's horses and barn cats and dogs, and when the price of manure goes up, that is when our ship is coming in. When manure tops the Dow Jones, that's when our ship is coming in to dock. But it's been a fine spring at the ranch. Ample rain, the purple martins, hummingbirds are settled in. The box turtles are migrating now. You probably noticed they're looking for greener pastures, thinking outside the box. The heifers are rotated to the back pasture, and the fireflies came in last week. And the fireflies are having their little lanterns and playing this little Morse code game that we don't understand. But when I was young, we collected the fireflies and we put them in a mason jar, and it was our own little personal flashlight, and we let them go. They were like tiny little Chinese lanterns taking off in chaos theory, going all over the place. Page 2. This starts remotely, but I promise I'm going to bring it back home. In Paris, the city of light, many years ago, there was a beautiful fashion model. Zoya was her name. And she had a good gig doing the runway modeling, but she had a change of heart. And she decided to cut her hair and get a tattoo and move to Alaska and rescue dogs and be a musher to train dogs for her sled dog. Now, several years later, we met her with her 14 dogs, and most of her dogs looked like they had ADD on amphetamines. They were parked, but they were jumping up and down and barking. One dog, a bigger dog, and of course all dogs come from the wolf, but he looked like a wolf, and he sat there, maybe the only smart one, just resting. And Connie, my wife, and he looked at each other, and they had a bit of a bond. And in talking to Zoya, they agreed that if he didn't make the sled dog team, he could come home and be a ranch dog if he didn't make the team. And so Connie went and helped with the sled dog teams that the Iditarod a few years, and it turns out Marlin didn't make the team. He didn't have that ADD that the other dogs had, and Zoe didn't think he enjoyed it enough, so she thought he could be a ranch dog, which is okay because Ben Franklin said we need to reinvent ourselves every few years, and so Marlin was going to have to reinvent himself as a ranch dog instead of a sled dog. But he grew up with 50 dogs in a big kennel, and they fed him fish because Zoya had married a fisherman and fish was ample. And when he came home, having spent his life with 50 dogs eating fish, he did not smell all that good. In fact, you could smell him 3 blocks away. But after several cleanups, he came back down to that normal dog smell level, and that allowed him to be in the house. Well, it took time for a dog like that to warm up. Initially, he would hide in the other room, and he would drop his head like wolves and coyotes do and watch people. But pretty soon he came to the same room. Then he would stand a foot away from anybody. And he wouldn't lick, he wouldn't paw, he wouldn't bark. He would stand there in case someone decided they had to pet a dog, and he would be available and then look up with big, brown, thankful eyes. And dogs do circle. In the old days, it was to make a place for them to lay down, but he circled a lot, and he decided he would sleep on the landing, and there is now a circle worn through where he circles before he goes to sleep. And he also buries bones, and some dogs do bury bones, but he loves it. But he has rarely brought a dirt-covered bone back into the house, which tells me he either can't find them like a squirrel or he's leaving them buried. But of course, squirrels bury thousands of acorns, and they find relatively few, so they are the best oak tree planters, and Arbor Day people are very happy about that. And I wonder if Marlin looked at the squirrels and thinks someday maybe a bone tree might grow from what he's been doing. But so far, no bone tree has come up. Now, sled dogs in Alaska, when they get free or they get loose, they go north. There is some magnetism that draws them north. And Marlin, when he was out and would get scared by a storm or the fireworks, which he did not like, would go north to the barn. But sometimes he would go south, and usually that was when he was with the little terrier, his little brother, his little buddy. And going south was toward the highway, so we'd have to chase them down. And when we'd find them, Marlin would look down at his little buddy, and like, you know that I go north, it must be somebody else's problem with this. Knew that we knew he was supposed to go to the north. And he acquired Indian wisdom somewhere along the way. Indians, when they're away from their teepee, away from their camp, on a cold day they'll go in the forest and cover themselves with leaves for the night. It keeps them warm. And Marlin, on the coldest of winter nights, would go, and there's a bush beside our front door, and the wind piles up the leaves. He would scoot down in the leaves and use his nose to bury himself in leaves, and he would spend half the night buried like an Indian. On the hottest days like today, he would go out and lay on the pavement, and I think he was trying to get those awkward, cold, frozen Alaskan winters finally out of his bones. Page 3. The biggest man on the basketball court is usually the slowest. And Marlin is the biggest dog we've ever had, but he was the fastest. He was faster than any Labrador we had. He could chase down a squirrel and catch it, but then he would usually let it go, much to the chagrin of our little terrier dog, who's 20 yards behind, because his job is to find varmints like that and not let them go. But Marlin, he would let them go. For some reason, UPS trucks come to our place frequently, and the dogs must have seen the Music Man sometimes because they feel it's the Wells Fargo truck. And when it comes down the lane, they charge out as fast as they can. And I have seen a few rookie new drivers and fear in their eyes, these two dogs charging as fast as they can. This one that looks like a wolf, because on nice days the UPS door is open. And Marlin will usually jump in the truck before it comes to a stop. But then his tail is wagging, his ears are forward and not back, and so they realize that this is a friendly greeting the next time they get a dog bone for their efforts. But they thought it was the Wells Fargo truck. We take our dogs most everywhere we go, and at the bank, Marlin, as big as he is, can stick his head out the window, and he watches that pneumatic canister go up and go to the teller. And then he stares at the teller until that canister comes back and watches it come down, because he is pretty sure there's a dog biscuit in there, one for him and one for his little buddy. And when we take the dogs out and about and people see, they like the little dog, but if they look at Marlin, they maybe have known him for 30 seconds, and they say, you know, if you ever get tired of Marlin, we'll take him home. If Marlin ever gets tired of being a ranch dog, he can come and live at our house. I have a friend, Ed. We go back some 40 years, and Ed's from St. Louis, and he does consulting in this area, and he is not an animal person. He's not a dog person. He has many good sensibilities, but he is not an animal person. I'm not sure he knows a cow and a horse, the difference between them, but he has many great sensibilities. And Marlin and he didn't pay much attention until a year ago, and Marlin would sit in the room, and then a little while later he'd be 20 feet away and then 10 feet away, and one day he sat right by Ed, and Ed patted him, and it was like there was an awakening, like some kind of metamorphosis, and they became best buddies. And because we go to bed early and get up early, Ed and Marlin would stay up watching the St. Louis Cardinals. That's Ed's team. And when Ed comes to visit, he doesn't come to see us. He's happy to see us, but he's mainly coming to see Marlin and get his Marlin fix. Now, he does have about the deepest baritone voice that you've ever heard. It's a beautiful voice. He doesn't bark much, and we try to do things to make him bark. It's like a solo with the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. And some people, you know, their voice doesn't quite match what you think they should sound like, but Marlin's baritone voice, it fits him perfectly. You might think I'm making some kind of a poster boy about Dog World, and actually you would be part right, because as the animal shelter was raising funds, Marlin heard about this, and he volunteered to help out as a poster child, because he was a rescue dog himself, and he wanted other dogs and cats to have that honor. And so Marlin was actually a poster child, and he's still very proud of that. Now, Marlin was about 15. Nobody knows how old a rescue dog is. They don't have a whelping record. They don't have a birthday. They don't get to celebrate a birthday. But as we all know here, you go from senior year to senior years pretty fast, because the days are long, but the years are short. But fortunately for me on the ranch, age is not the determination of function. We have a 20-year-old barn cat named Frizz that is still a good mouser. We have a 44-year-old Appaloosa mare named Sparkles that taught dozens of kids to ride horses But now she's retired, and her job is to watch a small herd of cows, which she is very fond of. But last week, about 5 in the morning, and the door was open, the spring breeze was coming in, it was a nice cool day, and Marlin came in from this landing. He heard we were up, but he came kind of unsteady on his feet, which was unusual because he is the most graceful animal, two-legged or four, on the ranch. He has a better trot and canter than any horse we've ever had, but today he was very unsteady and uneven. And then he got to his dog bowl and his food, and he walked past. And for you dog people, you know, when a dog walks past his food, something strange is in the wind. So he goes outside, and he kind of stumbles down the step, and he walks out to the pond, and he looks at the barn, and he looks at the windmill, and he looks at the horse trailers. He looks at his favorite watering spots, and then 3 purple martins fly over almost in formation, then they peel off. And these are a species of birds that drinks on the wing, and they fly over the water, sipping as they go. And Marlin watched them. And then he came back in, and he looked up as if to say, I just wanted to see my Missouri home one more time. And so, as dog people, we know the signs. So we took him to the vet, and he had some tumors, and there's not a good answer or a bad answer, but one answer, so Marlin was put to sleep. Now, as beasts go, and man goes, we know that it is the great circle of life. And we're given but one day to shine, one day to make an impact on the earth and its inhabitants. Now, some people say that all dogs go to heaven. I doubt that. We have a dog, I am certain, is sitting by the river Styx waiting for the ferryman to take him somewhere. Other people say that a dog is about the best part of the, or can be a good part of the family. I know many dogs that are the best part of the family along the way. One thing I do know is that this fish-eating rescue dog, this baritone voice speedster with the Indian ways, is the new greeter at Heaven's Gate. And that is the news from Maple Leaf Meadows, where our horses make the finest garden fertilizer in the county, where the deer and turkeys roam free, and where the dog is king.
My old dog likes his meat. Pork chops are a special treat. My old dog and me. My old dog and me. 2 old bums, 2 jolly old bums. My old